cố gắng để mà mình ráng cố gắng để mà mình ờ, đạt đủ cái túc số để mà được học. Tại vì nếu mà không học cái cấp 3 này thì là không biết là chừng nào thầy Giao Tinh mới có thể dạy tiếp cái cấp cấp 4. Và mọi người nếu mà không, tức là mình đã đợi học được cái lớp này 2 năm rồi, thì ra mọi người cố gắng tranh thủ để mà ráng ráng để mà được đủ túc số để mà học nhé. Cái điều thứ hai Trang muốn nhắc mọi người đó là ờ, ờ, vị nào mà muốn đi ờ, dự cái lễ đăng quang cho ngài Jordan thì liên lạc ngay với ban tổ chức Trang hoặc là đầu to để mà cho thông tin về cái chuyến đi này. Thực sự là tại vì như đã trình bày trước đây là ở Mother Tara mà mấy anh chị ở Mỹ không có tham dự được năm nay, và mấy anh chị Việt Nam thì hình như là cũng có thể là một hoặc là hai người đi thôi. Thành ra là nếu mà mọi người quyết định mà đi tham dự cái chuyến đăng quang này của ngài Jordan á, thì là phải tự túc và tự liên lạc với lại các thầy ở bên tu viện Sarah để mà họ giúp đỡ cho mình trong cái vấn đề mà um, ờ, ăn ở và di chuyển. Và thành ra là mọi người nếu mà có muốn đi thì xin liên lạc với ban tổ chức. Dạ, xin cảm ơn. Với lại cái lớp này mình đã học hơn 2 tháng rồi. Mà bây giờ thì chưa có ờ, ờ, thực sự là chưa có cái thầy thầy Tsondue có nói với Trang hôm hôm nọ, thầy có nói là thầy mong mỏi là mọi người ờ, đặt câu hỏi. Đừng có nghĩ là sợ hay là ngại là câu hỏi của mình không có liên quan đến đề tài, hoặc là câu hỏi của mình nó ờ, không có kia là buồn cười, hay là câu hỏi nó tầm thường. Nhưng mà thực sự là thầy rất là mong mỏi là mọi người đặt câu hỏi, và để cho mình có cái sự mà giao kết rồi mình nói chuyện rồi thầy sẽ giảng thêm. Còn nếu mà mình không đặt câu hỏi thì thầy cứ giảng như vậy mà không biết là mình có thu thập được hay không. Dạ, thành ra là mong mỏi là mọi người ráng cố gắng nghe bài, ôn bài, và nếu mà có cái điều gì thì cứ nên đặt câu hỏi. Thí dụ như tuần rồi nghe bài, tuần này hỏi vẫn được, hay là nghe bài của mấy tuần trước mà vẫn còn thắc mắc thì là mình cứ vẫn hỏi được, chứ không cần là phải hỏi cái bài của tuần trước nhé. Dạ. Cho Trang xin để nói vài tiếng Anh. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So, a couple of things. First of all, just wanted to remind everyone this is a class that we have had more than 2 months already, and it's supposed to be a group discussion. So, we wishing, and Ben Tsondue would like to request that if you are taking part in this class, please send in your questions. You can do it via text, via Viber, or you can send it once you in Zoom. And no matter how easy or how hard the questions are, we should just go ahead and post it, so that because your questions may be questions for many others as well. So it's best that that you put in a question so that everyone may learn together. Second of all, if you are interested in participating in Chodan Rinpoche's coronation at Sarah J in India, if you need additional information, please contact us as soon as possible so that we may forward information to you. There are a couple of monks at Sarah who are taking care of transportations, lodging. So, and then there's paperwork that needs to be filled out. So if you're interested in participating in that, please contact us so that we may give you the additional information. So let's just start the teaching today. Thank you. Dạ, mọi người xin cho vài phút ạ.
Start. Oh. Greetings to everyone. Sanjay Shoda, Sogo Shonan, Sunju Badani, Daki. Chuji give Sonam Jin, Rola Penji, Sanjay, Rola. Okay. So, generally, all the teachings are started and begin with the recitation of the technical refuge. So, which says, until I am enlightened, I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all. So this is usually recited at the beginning of every teaching, any kind of teaching, right? We can also say, until I am enlightened, I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By the practicing of giving the teaching. So on my part, because I'm doing in the form of lecture, but in the future, if you receive the teachings from someone, the masters, so then you can recite by the practicing of listening to the teaching and other perfections, right? Rather than saying by the practice of giving, by the practicing of giving and other perfections, may I to become a Buddha to benefit all. We don't say this, but we say, what we do say is, by the practicing of listening to the teachings on your part, because you are listening to the teaching, by the practicing of listening to the Dharma teaching and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all. On my part, what I say is, by the practicing of giving the teaching, on your part, listening to the teaching, right? So we make difference like this. So it will be more beneficial. So, like,
so when
we do
have some questions from the previous class.
Oh, I see. Yeah, sure.
So the first question is when we practice giving to accumulate merit,
Yeah.
so the right motivation is the right motivation should be to benefit all the sentient beings, or the motivation should be to achieve enlightenment. So what should be the motivation?
Yeah, that's again, yeah, very good question. Yeah. So the question being raised is, what kind of motivation should develop when practicing the giving, right? So generally speaking, not only the giving, in any kind of dharma activity, the motivation makes the difference. What kind of result we get in the future is heavily dependent on one's the cultivation of the motivation. For example, right, for example, I give something, I give something away to somebody with the motivation that I take a favorable rebirth in the next life, right? And then at this point, we create the merit, which becomes the cause for achieving the favorable rebirth in the next life. Similarly, I can develop the the motivation. I can develop the, for example, like I'm I develop the motivation like the wish to seek the liberation, the wish to seek the freedom from samsara, right? So with this motivation, if I engage in giving, the practice of giving, I create a merit. So that merit now become the cause for achieving the liberation, right? So similarly, I can develop a kind of motivation to benefit all things, right? I can develop the altruistic mind, the mind of enlightenment, the mind of enlightenment. Uh, Motivated by this, I can engage in the practice of giving. So at this point, I create the merit, which become the cause for achieving the highest form of enlightenment, right? Similarly, I can also develop the motivation of, motivated by understanding the ultimate nature of reality, how things, do exist, the ultimate nature of the reality. By understanding the ultimate nature of reality, I practice giving, right? I practice the act of giving. So at this point, we create the merit. We create the merit which becomes the cause for destroying the delusions of ourselves in the future, right? So, right, and then yet on the other hand, so these are kind of the merit, or the merit which is heavily related with the dharma world or dharma practice. However, I can practice. We can practice the act of giving, right? We can engage in the act of giving without any kind of motivation, right? The act of giving, I just give away something, just merely give away to benefit the person, the needy person, So with this kind of motivation, I can practice giving, right? But then the result is pretty limited. The result is limited. Definitely, you get the depending on depending on the resources, right? Depending on the resources in the future, or in this life, or in the future life, or after some point of life, we definitely get the result. We definitely get the resources back. Resources back. So that is only the result. Once we use that result, once we consume the result, and there's no more merit left. So that merit is sometimes we call as ordinary merit, because it is the motivation is the powerful motivation is not being involved, right? And at the same time, also out of out of anger, or out of anger, or out of some kind of a negative emotion, right? Negative emotion. If we practice giving, do we get the result? There's no doubt we will get the result. We will obtain the result, right? But this result is only you enjoy the result, and then after that it's already gone, right? So whether we have the ordinary motivation or no ordinary motivation, we still get the result. So this is some kind of like what we call as some ordinary ordinary merit. We create the merit. So here what really makes difference is that the merit, the motivation involved. The motivation is becomes very, very important. Right from the motivation. Right from any kind of dharma practice, the motivation hugely makes the difference, right? For example, like as we said, the great master Adisha, he said, if the root of the tree is poison, then all the leaves, all the branches are poison. If the root of the tree is medicinal, the leaves, the stems, the flowers, all are medicine, right? So what it means is, if the motivation is pure, every the verbal action and physical action, whether the verbal action become positive or negative, depends on the kind of motivation that we develop If the motivation is pure, every action, physical, whether it is a physical action or whether it's a verbal action, all these action become positive. If the motivation is negative, all the action and all the physical action or verbal action becomes negative. So the demarcation between the positive action and negative action depends on what kind of motivation we develop. If it is the positive motivation, the action is positive. If the action is motivation negative, the action is negative, right? So therefore, when we try to understand the non-virtuous action, negative karma, positive karma, what is positive karma, what is negative karma, right? Negative, positive action. When we talk about positive action, it's a action. It's an action. Action is related to the doer, agent. Agent. Now, when we talk about the agent refers to the motivation, right? So, what kind of motivation involved? Now, for example, for example, right now, sometimes we, just 10 non-virtuous action. We can talk about 10 non-virtuous action. Now, for example, in the case of telling lie, in the case of gossiping, right? Gossiping. Now we say, is the gossiping negative action or positive action? The question may arise: is the gossiping positive action or negative action? Right? Or telling lies, is it positive action or negative action? We can simply say gossiping is a negative action. Negative action, negative karma. Because why it is a negative karma is because the motivation involved is gossiping motivation. I want to gossip. So this kind of motivation is negative. So the action becomes negative, right? So therefore, in the what we call is in the Hinayana teaching, in the Hinayana teachings, in the Hinayana doctrine or in Hinayana teachings, 10 non-virtuous actions, 10 non-virtuous actions are never permitted. Buddha never permitted under any circumstances, under any situation. Buddha never permitted the 10 non-virtuous actions, right? Because why he never permitted is because there's more danger. The more the motivation is for the beginner. This the motivation is intense. The intense. So therefore he never permitted. Now, if you go into the Mahayana teachings, then in some situation, under some circumstances, Buddha allowed, Buddha permitted some these kind of 10 non-virtuous actions, right? So like this. So here the act of giving, all these, not only the act of giving, in many of the the dharma practice, whether whether our dharma practice become transformative, positive, or negative, much depends on the motivation, how we cultivate the motivation, what kind of motivation that we have developed, right? So motivation makes the difference, right? Like this. So I think this is the answer to the question. Then no question, no. If we have no question, then yeah, we will continue from the last week's class discussion. So then, yeah, last week we talked about the we talk and discussion about the the mindfulness of the death, the contemplation, the impermanent of the death. Mainly we use the mindfulness on the impermanent of death. So this topic is very, very extremely important, But sometimes if you try to look at it, the topic, it seems if you do not have good understanding, it seems a little bit one may feel uncomfortable, right? Because we are talking about the cases of death, But if we if we spend some time on this topic, it really has some flavor, sweet flavor. Otherwise, if you right from the beginning, if you try to, we develop the impression, that it's something, kind of like negative, it's scary like this. So this, the contemplation, the mindfulness on the impermanent death becomes very, very important, extremely important. Not only in the Dharma life, but even, without, even, for example, right, even in those who, does not believe in Dharma, this kind of meditation becomes very helpful, very helpful. Because what we do say is, to make the, for example, we talk about the 9 reasons. I will go later. 3 root, 9 reason, 3 promises, right? So to summarize all these things, then we say, life is short. Life is short, and then at the same time, we do not know when the death comes, right? Now, what it has to do with ourselves, what it has to do with other. If we think about this, right? As I said, if you don't think, contemplate, then it looks a little bit scary. But if you think, it's very great flavor. It has, many, important points. The short message is, what it says is, life is short, and but it, the life is unpredictable. We do not know when the death comes, because this is the nature. So what we do say is, we seek happiness. We seek happiness and get rid of suffering. Or what we say is, enjoy the life, right? That's the main thing. That's the main thing, even not speaking from the, spiritual side, Dharma side, just in the ordinary and normal, leading a normal way of life, this issue becomes relevant, right? Now the question say, life is short, the unpredictable of life. If that really is the case, then the point is, enjoy the life. They enjoy the life. Now the question comes, if we were to enjoy the life, how do we enjoy the life? So that is the question. How do we enjoy the life? I think there are 3 group of people, 3 group of person, right? One, enjoy the life. The way through which they enjoy the life is mainly through material facilities. This is first person. The second person is, the second person try to enjoy the life by leading the spiritual, a spiritual life, abiding his life within the ethical discipline. This is number 2. Third person, the third person tries to enjoy the life, by taking the essence from this life, by taking the essence, by doing the Dharma practice. So in the first case, trying to enjoy the life only through the material facilities, that is the joyful experience. The happy life is very limited, very limited. Because in the first case, if we do pursue the material facilities, yes, we do have every right. We definitely need the material facilities, material comfort, because material facilities provide us, physical well-being, physical happiness, pleasurable experiences only at the physical level. But then, at the same time, the material facilities alone cannot guarantee the mental happiness. Cannot guarantee the mental happiness. If, however, the material facilities alone, provide both physical and mental happiness, then in the many developed countries, why do we see the people with the things like self-depression, low self-esteem, the sense of loneliness, right? And then a lot of stress. So these cases alone prove that material facilities alone cannot provide both physical and mental happiness. For the physical happiness, for the physical, pleasurable experiences, we do need material facilities. There's no doubt, right? But then, in order to create the more mental happiness, now when we talk about mental happiness, it does not come from outside. It is something that we need to cultivate within us, right? So this is the first. Now the second, we talk about, bringing, happiness, bringing or, seeking the joy by leading a spiritual way of life, right? Again, this is very good, this is very nice, this is very good, it is much far better than those persons who only seek the joyful experience through material facilities alone. So the second one, to some extent, yeah, very good, very good. There is a certain degree of mental happiness, by leading a spiritual way of life, right? When I talk about leading a spiritual way of life, it is all about, something like, the value in the value in the tolerance, the value of love, the value of compassion, all these things, involved, we see the great value, and then we do engage in these kind of, inner resources, by inner resources. So there is certain degree of joy and happiness by seeking the, spiritual way of life, right? Not necessarily, when we talk about the spiritual way of life, it does not necessarily mean, seeking the dharma way of life, right? But then third, in the third case, now that is again, the person who seek the joyful experience by seeking the dharma, by seeking the dharma or by practicing dharma, that person is, of course, seeking the highest form of enlightenment, highest form of happiness, highest form of joy. Because when we talk about, finding happiness, seeking happiness, we are not talking about something temporary, temporary kind of happiness, but happiness that is something long-lasting, something very profound, something which is very long-lasting, right? So that is what is called as a total freedom, the total freedom, the moksha. We call it moksha, in Sanskrit is called nirvana, and then we also have like enlightenment, highest form of enlightenment, highest form of enlightenment. So in this way, by contemplating on the, by contemplating on the impermanence of death, it really, help us, to seek the joy, to seek the happy life. By seeking the happy life, and then how to achieve the happy way of life, like how to achieve the happy way of life, to make all the things short, to make the long story short, to make the long story short, how do we define the quality of life? Highest, when we talk about, defining, leading the highest quality of life, right? Sometimes we call us leading a successful life, right? How can we define leading a successful, way of life? Some they measure leading the successful life, based on the resources, material, values. But then, according to Buddha, Buddha said, the happiness, the degree of happiness, that we cultivate, that we are going to cultivate, depends not on resources, depends not on the outlook, external outlook, right? Not depends on, the nationality. Buddha simply say, the happiness, depends on how we tame the mind, how we discipline the mind. If we well discipline the mind, you have happiness. If you do not, if you do not discipline the mind, if you do not tame the mind, then we will have suffering, the pain and suffering. So Buddha, make it very short. The happiness and the suffering depends on how we tame our mind. If we really tame well our mind, we will have plenty of, happiness. If we do not tame our mind, then we will get more, painful experience, right? So therefore, this is the general understanding of the need to contemplate and being mindful of meditating on the being mindful of the impermanence of death. The impermanence of death. Now, I will try to explain according to the pure spiritual viewpoint, pure dharma viewpoint. I better use the word, dharma viewpoint, right? So a lot of benefits, many great benefits are being taught in by Master Shantideva in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, So when we to summarize all the important points, on the subject relating to the meditation on the impermanence of death, we will summarize into the three fundamental root, 9 reason, and finally 3 resolution, 3 promises, right? So the first fundamental root, the first root is, I think I already provided this in the, we already, I think you have all the three fundamental root, three basic root, and 9 reason, and 3 promises. We already provided, if you look into this, you will get a better understanding. The first root is I think you have the text. I better go through the text. So the first root, it says, the death is certain. The certainty of death. The death is certain. Then the three reason is death certainly come. When the death come, no condition can avoid it. This is first reason. Second reason is one's lifespan. We have a certain limited life, lifespan. So it is impossible. It is impossible to get your life extend. Extend. So this is second reason. Third reason is one may have to die without having to practice dharma. This is three reason, right? So then with this, then I will explain one by one. Okay, the first reason. It says death certainly come, and when death come, no condition can prevent it. No condition can avoid it, right? So that is the reality. Death comes. Why death comes? For some people, for some nationality, the death can come. For some parts of the country, that is bad. Not that way, right? Or even the Buddha, even the great masters of the past, even the great kings, the great emperors, the great emperor, right? Even the great leaders, the rulers of the world, or like Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, the great philosopher like Socrates, Plato's, Aristotle. All this, the name is left. The great, even the great scientists like the Newton, right? Galileo, the Einstein, the Hawking, all this pass away. All this left the body. Jesus Christ, the great religious figure like Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad, Mahavira, Krishna, Lord Shiva, all these pass away. The great singers like, okay, I don't go much. So anyway, not a single person is left, in the history. All those the people in the past already died. But why died? If we being asked the question, sometimes we take for granted, we don't question ourselves, So why do we die? We die because our body is made in that way, and because our body is the product of karma and delusion. Our body is the product of karma and delusion, and our body is the product of karma and delusion, and we haven't gained control over rebirth. That is the reason. So again, under the control of karma and delusion. So this is something very important. This is what do we mean? What do we meant by under the control and domination of karma and delusion. So this is a huge topic, very, very huge topic. And in this regard, the great, the great luminaries from the Nalanda University, even, of course, it was the teaching taught by Buddha, and later on the great masters like Dharmakiri, the Nagarjuna, the Aryadeva, the Master Chandrakiri, these great, intellectual, giants, clearly and thoroughly explained the, what really is meant by, under the control of karma and delusion, and we haven't in control over, the birth, the birth and death. So because of this very nature, once born is to die. Once rising up is to fall down. I mean, we are not criticizing. We are telling the reality. We are dealing with the reality. So this is the bitter truth, the bitter reality. So then, in the past, many people, for example, wherever we born, whether we born in the East, whether we born in the West, whatever date we, whatever date, whether you're born in the, January, February, March, April, whatever, whichever place, whatever kind of body we may have taken, finally, going through the death, is the reality. So this is the reality. Now, when the death come, when the death come, if we, without having to practice Dharma, without having to practice, when the death come, if we die without having to practice Dharma, it is a great loss. It is a great loss. Now, why? Why it is a great loss? Why it is a great loss is because we want happiness. That's the reality. Even after death, we want happiness. That's it, simple. That's simple. We want happiness, even after death. Right? Why we want happiness? Because we have the innate feeling to feel happy and get rid of suffering. Even after death, that occurs even after death. Why? Again, because just like the present life, I have the innate feeling to feel happy and not wanting suffering. Therefore, if we really want happiness, practice Dharma. Again, when we talk about practicing Dharma, I don't want to go much into detail, because it involves a lot of Buddhist psychology, which purely proves Dharma is the thing that we needed to achieve long-lasting happiness. And then so this is the reality, right? Actually, when the death comes, no condition can avoid it. Now here, no external condition can avoid it, no internal condition can avoid it. When the death comes, the medicine cannot do nothing. Sometimes we do, of course, mantras are very powerful, but at the point of death, this cannot avoid. The resources also cannot. So there are many external conditions. Even sometimes some VIP, very important person, they bring the bodyguard, right? So bodyguard, but then there are many cases in the past that even despite the surrounded by heavy bodyguard, the person is being killed. No guarantee. And the death comes. In early times, the king and the emperor stay in the castle, surrounded by all the, they built, the fence, iron fence, metal fence. They build this concrete cement where the person cannot reach, but when death comes, these also cannot, do nothing. And then the internal condition. External condition can do nothing. And then the internal condition. Internal condition are what? Internal condition are, now, for example, we have, good immune system. We talk about immune system, right? Immune system is usually for, maintaining the good health. But then when death comes, immune system cannot do nothing. Immune system can, you see, when the COVID outbreak, during COVID, in the very beginning of the COVID, almost for 1 year, what happened? All the country are locked down. Why? All the country are locked down. We are asked to, I wear this, not because of the fear of the COVID. Yes. But then when the COVID breakdown, we are asked to wear the mask. Why? No matter how, I'm not, we definitely need to take good care of health, definitely, again, it's related with this immune system. But what I'm saying is, when these things happen, we have to be careful. Why we need to be careful? Why we have to be careful? Why we want to be careful from the administration, from the government, this and that. And we also ourselves taking care. Why? No matter how powerful one's immune system is, but yet on the other hand, because of the fragility of our body, we are being asked to wear the mask. The whole country is locked down, all around the globe. So yeah, this is the reality here. And then, the extension of life, the second reason is extension of lifespan is impossible. Oh, now I create certain, amount of merit, I create the merit, which a kind of, the karma to live up to a certain period of time, certain period of year, For example, I create, maybe create the karma to live for maybe 80 years, maybe 90 years. You create the karma to live for maybe 100 years, who knows? But then beyond that, then we cannot, right? Beyond that, we cannot stay, because even though we wanted to stay, but our physical, as we age, as we gets older, our physical strength alone tells a lot of story. Even though we may the wish to stay maybe 200 years, 300 years, 400 years, we wanted to stay, but then as physical, physical, the nature of the physical and the physical stays, says a lot of story, So that means we have a certain limit of the time to live, and then more interestingly is that our life gets shorter and shorter. So we are discussing, so we are just discussing. So it's getting shorter and shorter. Right. It is shorter and shorter by, not by millisecond, millisecond by millisecond, second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, right? Decade by decade. So it's getting shorter. Again, that is the reality. And then the third is so we may think, oh, I will practice dharma when I get retired. Right now, I'm busy, I have some very important things to do, I will take some other point of time, only when I, time does not allow me to do, But then when the message of death comes, no exception for anybody. The message of death takes away our life in the most uncertain way. And they didn't give us notice, If we have here, sometimes if we make an appointment, we are being noticed. But the strangely, when the message of death comes, they don't give any notice, They come all of a sudden, without giving any warning. Right. So then, we cannot again guarantee that, the somebody in the mother's womb, the child in the mother's womb, go later. The older people go early. There's no such thing. There's no such rule, When the message of death comes, there's no exception. Rich, poor, educated, uneducated, religious or non-religious, poor or wealthy, this nationality or that nationality, does not know anything. The Lord of Death is the ultimate truth. Without giving any exceptions, they take our life, precious life, all of a sudden. So therefore, even the child in the mother's womb can die, early, later than the person who reached 100 years. There is no guarantee that the doctor or the nurse live longer than the patient. Again, sometimes things are reversed. The doctors, the nurses really working very hard to save the patient. But then when it comes to the reality of the death, the things are reversed. So yeah, we may make the plan, to I will do the Dhamma practice, but the tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow never comes, until we put into action. Until we put into action, the tomorrow never comes. So when the Lord of Death come, the Lord of Death does not give us the, does not give us some, have some compassion for us, oh, you have something to do, I will let you live, certain year, don't worry. No. I will leave you some more year, I have some compassion for you, no, not this way. Equal punishment. So like this, so there we say when the time is very, very perfect, we talk about 8 leisures and 10 endowments, 8 freedom and 10 endowments. We have all these things. So when we have all this during Dharma practice system, number 1, I will tell you a very small, funny story. Funny story. And this one guy, this one person, the Lord of Death came, right? Lord of Death came, and the Lord of Death, reminded the person, oh, your the neighbor on your right side, and just passed away yesterday. And then after a few months, few years later, again the Lord of Death come, your neighbor on the left side also passed. And he didn't take any notice, didn't pay any attention. Now the time come for him. Then the Lord of Death come, such a, you are doing such a stupid thing, I already warned you, but still you are absent-minded. Right? So something like this, yeah. Then this is now, with all this, the death is certain, I already gave the reason, we already discussed why the death is certain. 3 reasons, right? 3 reasons. And then with these 3 reasons, we come to the conclusion. What kind of conclusion? What kind of conclusion is that we develop the understanding. We have developed understanding that I have to do Dharma practice at all cost, no matter what. So that is, yeah, very, very important here. Sometimes, I mean, we are talking about, for example, right, we can meditate on, we can, for example, we can meditate on bodhicitta, right, bodhidharma. We can meditate on wisdom, right, wisdom. We can meditate on, deity yoga, Avalokadesha, Konyan, Tara, right, Konyan, Tara, Amitabha, right. We can meditate on, the highest yoga tantra practice like Goya Samaja, Yamantaka, He Vajra, Heruka, Mahamudra. Just meditate on this impermanent death. and you do this practice, you get the feeling. You definitely get the feeling. If you don't do this, the feeling, and if you do other practice, yes, you develop feeling, but it is very short-lived. It is very short-lived, 100% short-lived. I guarantee. If you do this practice, it's really what we are doing. The practice becomes something living, something that you really feel from the heart. Right. So this is what we say. We really come to understand and know how to do the practice in the right way. So I think now I don't spend much time on this. So later on, we discuss briefly. I don't want to take much time. And then the second root is that the time of death is uncertain. That this is the second root. Second root. The time of death is uncertain. Why the time of death is uncertain? Because the lifespan of this world is indefinite. The lifespan of this world, the lifespan of the people of this world is uncertain. And especially the lifespan of the people of this world, the lifespan of the people of this degenerate age is uncertain. Oh, what happened? I saw that person yesterday. He was healthy. That is normal. That's the reality. Few years ago, I didn't expect. Sometimes we express, right? How come? He's healthy, so healthy. I saw him very healthy. No more. Right. So there are many causes, many causes which takes away our life. So it's very uncertain. And then the causes of death are many, and the survival is very little. The causes of death are many. Right? Even though these become causes, sometimes we take we run, right? We go and run, and on the days of what's that? Something like slippery banana, and some people fall from the stair, right? And some people go to meet their the parents in the airplane. Then you see the natural disaster, even the earthquake. When the earthquake happens, a lot of cost a lot of life. No, the flood. How many people reporting dying from the flood, earthquake, the fire disaster, the flood, then cyclone, right? It's of course cyclone, the hurricane. So there are limitless number of the causes of death, and then the survival is little. And then we may say, yes, there are many survival, the survival, our survival, like facilities, the facilities house. We have the good food, all these things. These are our survival, the causes of our survival. But again, there's no guarantee. When although, for example, the houses, the food is good, sometimes there's a food poisoning. Yeah, sometimes the house collapsed. Yes, all those become even those causes which becomes the survival become the causes of death. And then, as I said, and then number 3 reason is the body is fragile, the fragility of the body. Right? What do we mean by fragility of the body? right? For example, when we export, when we export some stuff, products, we say the product is fragile, handled with care. We say this, right? What does that mean? It means handle the product with great care. It may break any point of time. It is not long lasting. In short, it says it is not long lasting. It can break any time. It can damage any time. Be careful. It warns us. So the similar body is fragile. The fragility of the body, because you see, even though we have the 4 elements in the body, 4 elements, which make us, pretty, in good health. Just as when the fire element in a body, there are 4 elements or 5 elements. When the 5 elements increase, the problem comes. The problem comes. You see, so sometimes here in some countries we say specialist, right? The brain specialist, right? Cardiologist, cardiologist, and then sometimes we have the eye specialist, the ear specialist, and then we call some kind of urologist, right? Neurologist, specialist, we say. But then when we treat some disease, when we treat, for example, ear, all the brain, when we treat some brain, all the nerves are connected everywhere. All the nerves are connected everywhere. When something goes, little go wrong, other issue. You see, I will tell you one. I heard, one a story, real story. There's one, a Tibetan lady. She has some, migraine headache. She has some migraine headache. Migraine headache, not that serious. Somehow, the doctor suggested her to, to do some, some eye surgery. Eye surgery, something, later on, she got blind, totally blind. So you see, a small, a small thing contribute. So all this shows the, the fragility of the body. And then you see, for example, in our Tibetan medical system, we say the phlegm, the phlegm, and then the bile, and then the bile wind. Wind is wind. When either of these goes, the problem arises. So not easy. Everything is interconnected. Even just as in this external world, everything is connected. When something happens in the West, this impact on the East. When the economy goes down, it affect. When the you see, sometimes we say, oh, I'm in a safe place. No. We are same place. Now we are talking about the global warming. Global warming. Everybody feel the effect because everything is interconnected. Not easy. Oh, I'm in the same place. There's no something. Because the space belongs to all the world. The sky belongs to all the world, the whole world, globe. Then there's a problem of, how to say, exhausting the, ozone layer, right? Ozone layer, depleting the ozone layer. When depleting the ozone layer, everybody feel the effect. So therefore, just as the external, world is heavily connected, similarly, the internal world is heavily connected, interconnected. Something goes wrong, somewhere in the path also get impact. So because of this nature and reality, it shows the fragility of the body in many, many ways. And then these times also we talk about, now, these days, because of, the medical and science and medical advances, we are making, that, the artificial or, or duplicate, the heart, duplicate kidney, the liver, all these things, right? So then, how long, but then the question is, can we really make, somebody who does not go die? That's impossible. Yeah. Because again, when even though we make things, finally it has to come with the karma and delusion, because everything is the product of karma and delusion. So now with the death is the time of the death is uncertain, because there are three reasons. Because of these three reasons, now we come to the conclusion. That, I have to do the dharma practice. I have to do the dharma right from now onwards. Because nobody knows whether death comes tomorrow or day after tomorrow or next year. Who knows? So unpredictable, because of the unpredictability nature of the one's lifespan. If we have to do something, if we have to do the dharma practice, do it right now. Tomorrow never comes. Until we do today, the tomorrow never comes. Right. Now now after having said this, one of the very important things that I want to share is, if we were to really make the life living, life something very happy life, if we really wanting to develop some really experience, spiritual experience, what really is the secret? What really is the secret? So the real secret is, sometimes, sometimes we have the feeling, oh, we make the plan tomorrow, right? We make the plan the next year, right? Making plan and all this, very good, very good, very very good, and also logical, rational, like this. But however, at the same time, we need to develop such a recognition. That you are not sure. I'm not sure whether I'm alive today. Now some may fear, why should I do this? Right? Some may fear and some may question, why should I do this? We have to do this. If we really want a happy life, a real authentic happy life. I'm not talking about temporary happiness. I'm not talking about the short-lived happiness. I'm just talking about long-lasting happiness. We have to say, I'm not sure if I will be alive today or not. Because in reality, what really happens now, for example, if I think I'm not sure, I'm most probably I will not be alive today. Right? Most probably I will not be alive today. By thinking, thinking in this way, are we not alive today? No. No. For example, right now, for example, when we do the prayer, may all the suffering, may all the may all the the pain and suffering of all the beings ripen upon me right now. We make prayer, right? Do we suffer? Are we going to take all the suffering of all the sentient beings on you? Are we really suffering? Are we really suffering? Do we really experience the suffering of all the sentient beings? No. But you have to do it. What is the benefit? What is the purpose? There's a huge benefit, huge purpose, that your inner strength is increased to the limitless stage. Inner strength. Because sometimes when we do the Dharma practice, we lack inner strength. So therefore, we don't progress. We get stuck here and there. We're stuck somewhere. We are not progressing because of the totally lack of the inner strength. So what causes us to develop the infinite inner strength is taking the responsibility. Therefore, you take the risk. But in reality, to make the things short, to make the things simple, in reality, are we not going to live today? No. We cannot guarantee. But then what is the benefit? What is the purpose? The purpose is that we are going to achieve the happiness, the real happiness, a real joy, a real happiness. All the transformation begins from this, at this point. All the transformation begin at this point. Because sometimes we suffer, sometimes we are not ready because we neglect the reality. We totally ignore the reality. So therefore we suffer. We have no gut to take the huge responsibility. We have not the gut to take the to accept the reality. If you do this, then what happened? Oh, I have to die today. You make each and every effort to bring something valuable in this very life, in today itself. When tomorrow comes, tomorrow I'm not sure if I will be alive. With this kind of thinking, you use each and every valuable minute for the constructive purpose. So this is the secret. Yeah, sometimes we may wonder, when we talk about the contemplation of the impermanent death, what it has to do. It has to do a lot of things. This is the foundation. It has to do many things. It has to, all your spiritual practice, even the normal happiness comes from understanding this. One begin to lead a very constructive life, very positive life in this very life because of this, because of thinking on the contemplation of the impermanent life. One make the biggest ever possible spiritual transformation by thinking on this. But sometimes we don't understand these things in a much deeper way. Then we are afraid, scary, talking about these things, right? No. Then, now with that we go to the third promise. Third route. Now we go to the third route. Third route is, at the time of death, nothing will be of any benefit. At the time of death, nothing will be of any benefit, right? At the time of death, that means that this is the third route. At the time of death, nothing will be of any benefit. Now, resources. The resources, while if, however, we let these resources should become the facilities. To undertake the Dharma practice. to study the Dharma practice, to contemplate the Dharma practice, resources, right? However, if these resources does not become the conducive or facilitate Dharma practice, rather become the cause for more miserable and more problem, then at the point of that, this will no benefit. Right. And then resources, and then companions, one's friends, or what we call as companions, again, the companions, we say the friends and, the loved ones will not be benefit at the time of death, because at the time of death, oh, you're very close, you're dear to my heart, we have karmic relation for, many lifetimes. You are my, something closest to my heart. You are the most my love admiring person. At the point of death, you cannot carry even that person, even let alone carrying your, these things. Even the body that we cherish so much cannot carry in the death comes. This is the reality. Then now we are the third, the first, the resources will be of no help. The companions will be of no help. The body, one's own body, will be of no help at the point of death. At the point of death, then what really carries is all the positive thoughts, all the positive activities that we have done while we are alive. This will be carried on in the next life. If it is the positive thoughts or whether it's the negative thoughts, these imprints in the mind will be carried on in the later life. Other than this, one's body will not be that be helpful. Of course, we need to take care of all these things. But however, if this body is used for other unconstructive way, rather than constructive way, then it says not much point in grasping too much grasping, because at the point of death we have to leave behind. Finally, what is the resources, the companions, the body, all this. We need no question. There is no question that we are not saying we do not need. This should be need, but what is the main point? The main point is do not have too much grasping. This too much grasping create more problem. With this more problem, one's life is problematic life. And sooner or later, you have to leave all these things behind. At that point, only your mind stream goes on in next life. You cannot bring all these things together. So that is the point. That is the point. We are not saying, oh, they abandon all this. No. We are not saying all these things. Abandon all this. We do need. If we do need, what really important is do not involve too much grasping and too much craving, because this craving and grasping will do nothing good, only the problem, create a problem, and not only that, and also finally at the point of that, you will have to leave all this behind in your mind travel. With this, then the third promise, now the third promise is, with this being the reality, now I have to do the Dharma practice alone. So Dharma practice alone is the most reliable, most guaranteed, most reliable, right? Most reliable and the most guaranteed Dharma practice. All the other things are not reliable, Why not reliable is, yeah, but I will discuss this in the later on. This is extremely, extremely important. Otherwise, sometimes, so many things, corrupted our mind, polluted our mind, then, yeah, our thinking goes in that way. And then finally, there's nothing left. So this is the, short contemplation. I don't want to go much into details. There are also many things need to be discussed at this point. So if you have any question, you're welcome. Any question?
Dạ, mọi người ai có câu hỏi xin gõ vào phần chat ạ.
Yeah. I don't hear very well. No, I cannot hear very well. She's talking from this. I don't hear. Yeah, I cannot hear very well. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. If there is no question, yeah, then we will wrap up the class. So yeah, in any Dharma practice, in any kind of Dharma practice, that the dedication becomes very important. The dedication becomes very, very important. Why the dedication becomes important is again, for example, we create certain amount of merit, by studying. I discussed some Dharma teachings with you, and you as a listener Dharma, we create certain amount of merit. This merit we need to dedicate, because if we don't dedicate, what happens is sometimes when we get upset, when we get anger or hatred, this merit are destroyed. Right. So long as our merit is not destroyed by anger and hatred, you can use this merit until you become Buddhahood. Right. So therefore it's very important. Again, for example, we practice giving, right? For example, you practice giving, you give some, like making contribution, right? Making contribution, making donation to this and that, So this as a result, we get resources back in any point of time. And although we are not expecting the return, but still we are getting back the the resources. So now when we really get back the resources, we are not sure whether these resources that we are going to receive in the future become the facilities for your Dharma practice or obstacle to your Dharma practice. We are not sure. So in order to make sure that these resources that we receive back in the future to become the real, the facilities for your Dharma practice, we need to make the prayer, the dedication that may I take a rebirth in the future, when may I take a favorable rebirth in the future, and may all the merit that I earned as a result of practicing giving, may all they become the facilities for my Dharma practice. We need to make this kind of dedication like this. So right now I'm giving the example, right? In any other form, do we do the same?
Then we do have a question now. So the questions is, we know that that is uncertain. So let's say if it happens right now, so what should we do? What should we do when the time when the death comes?
I see. Yeah. Yeah. When the death actually comes, so the for example, right, if one is in hospital, the doctor will pronounced that you are going to live for few more months, then in this period, what need to do is then and there is some practice one need to dedicate all the one need to engage in a lot of practice practice like making the contribution of one's resources to the temple and to the to the needy people, all these things, because the very why we do this is why we do this kind of practices, because at the point of the death, in the last breath, we want to go peacefully with a calm mind, with when the opportunity arises, that there's some the opportunity where we develop craving, develop attachment, anger, total no good. This is no good. This is at the point of time no use, so therefore before the actual death comes, then we dedicate, we try to engage in a lot of practice, giving the making a engage in the act of giving. And then there are many practices like as we said, doing a lot of powerful prayers, usually during the 35 confession, and also the practices like purification practice and Akshobhaya practice. These are really powerful now, because why is because when if the person, what is the main cause? What is the main cause for taking the person take the rebirth in the favorable realm? Favorable realm is the main cause is negative karma. So one need to purify the negative karma first, So therefore, when it comes to making the purifying 35 confession, for example, like Vajrasattva, 35 confession, purification practice, medicine Buddha purification practice, right? And then Buddha Akshobhayas, practice this really powerful practice, which helps to purify the person's negative karma. When the negative karma is purified, then the person no reason to take birth in the lower limb. Then the person take a favorable limb, a more favorable existence. And then usually, there are different ways of doing. When the person is on your part, what has to be done. So when if the person is a practitioner, if the person is doing some daily practice, person is doing daily practice, that person has some devotion to his or her own guru, right? Guru or teacher. So let recite the prayer of that guru or that deity in front of his ear, in the presence of his ear, because in one time in early time, there's one master, so he was dying, he was dying, and he requested his attendant, then he said, I'm dying, can you recite bodhicitta prayer, Chanchu Semcho Rinpoche, right? May the bodhicitta which has not arisen rise and grow, right? Which has not arisen, which has maybe if it has degenerated, it restored, right? And it continue to grow and grow. So that then the master hear all this because it allows him to contemplate on the meaning, and with this he he died peacefully, very calmly. If possible, then there's one, what happened is in Tibet, during the Cultural Revolution, and then there's one monk, one old monk, he's going to execute going to execute and shot the gun, and then this monk, old monk, he say, before you shot me, let me do one prayer, right? There's one prayer, which the practice, the practice which involves giving and taking. May all the pain and suffering of all the sentient beings ripen upon me. May I give my joy and happiness to all the sentient beings. So he did this prayer, a 5 lines prayer, and then with this was done, and then finally he was shot. So that is the real wonderful, truly wonderful, right? He dedicated all his merit for all the sentient beings with this job. So if we are very good practice, high level practice, then we can, these things can happen. Yeah, at that point of time, there are many wonderful practices to do. As far as we understand, meditation, at the point of death, what is the best meditation that we could do? The best meditation that we could do is at the point of death, right? At the point of death is none other than bodhicitta. If we die with bodhicitta mind, there is 100% guarantee that human life is 100% guaranteed. Not only the human life, if you want to take the birth in the place where the Buddha Dharma has flourished, you are going to take the rebirth there. There's no question. So this the meditation of bodhicitta, the most powerful practice at the point of death. If we were given the choice, which meditation would be the best? But the meditation bodhicitta is the number 1. Okay, yeah. With this, we better conclude that. Yeah, this session. Oh, you are the Lama Sanjay to be the Wachigama, what he is solid. Oh, Chanjo some children, but here, my Yabon, Jawan Yabon, by a corner content. And the Tawarambuchi, my Yabana Jawan Yabon, by a corner content, show Jabba, Jadakin Pada, and something addition. The talking just a Daluji, what the Dakam Cherato, probation of the Kandava Malijuan. Series of what is the Yazon Shabe City, but then Yoshi, Major Ludo Sunday give it, Pelagin, that the Chugaji. Kivanga Mandina Vujo, Tai de Jake, and go so to make him homogeneous. And Jake is doing some of a loss on Tabe, shall so. Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you Lama.
Okay,
Mình
thank
ban
you.
tổ chức ạ.
Yeah, thank you.
Cảm ơn mọi người. Hẹn gặp mọi người tuần sau.
Cảm ơn thầy.
Yeah, thank you, Lamala.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cảm ơn.
Welcome. Come on. Yeah.
Di Lặc Phật. Cảm ơn thầy.
Dạ, dạ.
Cảm ơn
Con
ban tổ
cảm ơn.
chức.
Dạ,
Cảm ơn
dạ.
chị Hiền Trang.
Dạ, dạ. Dạ, con
Dạ.
lâu đây tránh. Dạ.
Dạ.
Okay.
Nam Tình Tứ.